I will never forgive you for what you did. You ruined our world, and, most importantly, you ruined the fate of Gregory's children. How I wish I could trade your petty, selfish, pathetic life for what you stole from us. You ruthlessly took a loving father from my children, and from me an older brother and one of my best friends. You don't deserve to carry our family name. You are nothing but a sick animal that should be put to sleep. With this speech, a member of the Booher family addressed his sister-in-law Janelle, the murderer of Gregory Booher, a hard-working, kind-hearted, and open-minded man, in court. What drove her to destroy another man's life and undermine so many others overnight? The case of Gregory Booher was born on July 19, 1981 in the American township of Scott County, Columbus, Michigan. He was the firstborn son of the couple Sharon and Gregory Booher Sr., whom everyone called simply Greg. The couple later had two more children, Chet and Troy. Unity and strong friendships were what made this family stand out. Gregory, who grew up loving and affectionate, had a very kind, inspired, deep desire to help without expecting anything in return. Both his invaluable character and the wonderful life values he espoused spoke volumes about the close relationship he had with his parents and especially his brother Chad, whom he cherished. In high school, Gregory became interested in motors and machinery. All his free time he began to devote to experiments and studying the work of mechanical devices and machines. During this period, the guy met a girl, whom he began to court. Friends and acquaintances later noted that between lovers, as if a spark ran between them. Passionate romantic relationship ended with an engagement. It was then, being very young, they learned that they were expecting a child. Whether they were sure of the decision or married, considering it their duty, it is not known. However, the marriage was registered, and on March 24, 1999, a girl appeared in the family, who was named Lily. The birth of his daughter filled the father with new strength, inspiring him to complete his education, which had been interrupted. After receiving a high school diploma, Gregory went looking for a job and, fortunately, quickly found a place in a prestigious company specializing in the manufacture of motorcycles. It suited his interests perfectly, but the experience he gained pushed him forward, and soon the man changed jobs, getting a job in a firm whose activity was connected with the manufacture of automobiles. There he had the opportunity to develop his skills and prove himself as a talented worker and responsive colleague. However, in family life, not everything went as smoothly as it worked. From love, there were only memories. Among the routine and eternal duties of the spouses, forgot about the bright feelings that once bound their hearts. As a result, the tension in their relationship led to divorce. Little Lily stayed with her father. Gregory, without hesitation, took this responsibility, since the daughter was for him the meaning of existence. Bachelor life the man led until 2012, until he met Janelle Marie. Born in July 1973, she was also from Scott. The names of her parents and the woman's maiden name have been kept anonymous. At the time, she worked at the state post office and, like Gregory, was previously married. The couple's married life had often been fraught with difficulties. At first they seemed insignificant, but as time went on, things got much worse. As a result, Janelle accused her husband of violence and abuse, pointing out to the police the injuries in the eye area. The report was accepted and an investigation was launched, which led to an unexpected result. It turned out that the woman was not at all the victim of an attack by her aggressive husband. The court found that she had self-harm for the sole purpose of accusing her spouse of something he did not do. Upon meeting, Gregory and Janelle noticed that in addition to their mutual attraction, they shared common interests. The most significant of these was a love of firearms. Very soon, trips to the shooting range became one of their favorite activities. The partners were happy, enjoying each other, and the age difference did not embarrass them at all. Gregory introduced his loved ones to his chosen one and made plans for their future together. However, as the couple's relationship developed, the man's relatives noticed some unpleasant changes. Gregory became distant from his family, and Janelle showed no effort to strengthen his ties with his loved ones. In 2012, without warning anyone, maintaining strict confidentiality, they got married in Las Vegas. Afterward, he and Lily moved into a house on 36th Street in Scott. Their combined annual income at that time was $1,000. The spacious basement space allowed them to convert it into a room for storing collectible guns and ammunition. Thanks to the extensive land next to the house, the couple practiced without going to the gun range. That same year, their son Jason was born to them. For Gregory, family was the top priority, and he tried to spend as much time with his children as possible. He was especially proud of Lily, as she grew up before his eyes and became more and more responsible and confident. After 15 years in the auto parts industry, Gregory felt the need for change and moved into the pharmaceutical industry. However, now his work schedule became quite different. There was an additional load in the form of night shifts. Meanwhile, Janelle remained reluctant to socialize with her husband's family. Not to gain his approval, not to get close to his relatives. Soon she even began to limit little Jason's encounters with his grandmothers and uncles. Except for this indifference to the people dear to Gregory, one could say that her whole life centered around her spouse. Obsessed with becoming the center of the universe for her spouse, Janelle began to feel jealous of the love her father showed his eldest daughter. The woman stopped noticing Lily and did everything to make the girl's life unbearable. Despite Gregory's attempts to preserve harmony in the family, the relationship between Janelle and Lily deteriorated every day. In April 2014, the man's patience reached its limit and he filed for divorce. In court, he asked for joint custody of Jason, but as expected, fighting Janelle proved difficult. The woman appealed the divorce request, arguing that the marriage could still be saved until the legal aspects were resolved. Gregory settled in the basement of the house, surrounded by a variety of weapons collected during their years together, and slept on a mattress. To his frustration, the divorce turned into a complicated and very long process, in large part because Janelle would not agree to joint custody of their 4-year-old son. On the evening of February 13, 2017, Gregory went to work, telling Lily before he left that he loved her. The next morning, when his shift was over, he returned home, went down to the basement, and lay down to rest. Around noon, Janelle also came in and, taking advantage of her husband's deep sleep, shot him with a .40 caliber pistol. Gregory died on the spot. Immediately seconds later, she proceeded to engage in a series of actions which she believed would help her avoid responsibility. Specifically, she shot herself in the arm. Then she called emergency services to report what had happened at their home. The Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office responded immediately. When a team of officers arrived on scene, Janelle was already standing in the street, cradling her bloody hand. Sergeant Warren Nair was among the first to arrive. Together with other police officers, he entered the house and took a number of photographs. Janelle was then escorted by him and taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital. During the trip, she told him about what had happened. According to the woman, after arriving home on her lunch break, she decided to have another conversation with Gregory on the subject of the impending divorce. Janelle begged him to reconsider his decision. She then told him that her attorney was already aware of Gregory's physical and emotional abuse toward her and Jason. After losing his temper, her spouse grabbed a gun and fired it several times. When Janelle finished her narrative, Sergeant Warren looked at her thoughtfully, noticing that she had been speaking with remarkable calmness the entire time. The next day, while in the hospital, the woman testified again, providing more details. This time, she was listened to not only by Warren, but also by another officer. Janelle specified that when she returned home, she immediately began doing laundry and then went down to the basement to wake Gregory. In this new version, she added that during their argument, he turned to the shelving unit at some point, took a .45 caliber weapon from the shelf, and fired 2 or 3 shots across the room without a specific target. Janelle thought he had finally let out all his rage and was relieved. However, the man drew his second weapon, looked her in the eye, and in the same second Janelle felt a hard blow to her chest. She fell, hitting her head, and lost consciousness. When she came to her senses, she saw the following picture. Gregory was lying without signs of life, covered with a blanket, with a gun in his right hand. The woman also told agents about the complicated divorce process and amplified her story with lies, claiming that Gregory had threatened her and insinuated that they would commit suicide. Initially, this version of events seemed to make sense to Warren, but one gesture by her made him hesitate. Janelle tried to encourage the officer to hug her, demanding sympathy. Warren later told his co-worker that he felt as if she had tried with all her might to convince him of the truth of her story. Already more calmly reflecting on the incident, Warren noticed that being an experienced shooter and the owner of so many weapons, Gregory could not have missed, especially considering that his wife was 2 meters away from him. Relatives of the deceased also pondered this oddity. Gregory's daughter, Lily, was certain that her father could not have harmed another person and would not have left her and his young son behind. Meanwhile, Janelle's medical examination revealed no head trauma, despite the alleged blow and subsequent loss of consciousness she claimed. Instead, gunpowder residue was found on her hands, adding doubt to the whole murky story. Forensic pathologist Brandy Shadow performed an autopsy on Gregory's body and concluded that the cause of death was a bullet wound to the head, and this injury was definitely caused by another person. After receiving these results, the investigators decided to call the team back to the crime scene. The task of reconstructing the sequence of events was assigned to Sergeant Jim Dungle, as well as a team of forensic lab technicians. Armed with their tools, including laser rangefinders and a special spray to measure the trajectory of the projectiles, they entered the basement. Given all the details they had gathered up to this point, Jim was particularly intrigued by the fact that Gregory was right-handed, and the entry wound from the bullet that had hit him was on the left side of his face. This indicated that the weapon had fired from about 45 centimeters away, and thus, for Jim, the hypothesis that the man had taken aim at himself was rejected. Had he used his left hand, he could not have held the gun in the usual manner and achieved the proper angle and distance at the same time. Then another inconsistency in Janelle's story surfaced. She claimed that her spouse was on the bed, but the gun was found a considerable distance from his body. The next step in the investigation was to measure the angles of the bullets. Only 2 of the 4 bullets found could be accurately traced. Based on this data, experts concluded that Gregory's fatal wound was caused by a .40 caliber weapon, and the bullet remained in his head. A second bullet pierced part of the door and struck one of the walls, raising a cloud of dust that spread in small particles throughout the room. Examining Gregory's body, investigators found these particles on his eyelashes, neck, and hair. They were also over the blood at the scene, indicating that this shot was fired well after Gregory's death. Last but not least, Jim was able to determine that Janelle and her husband had about the same amount of gunpowder residue on their hands. It wasn't hard to conclude that one of them had had the opportunity to wash their hands and attempted to remove the evidence. And of course, it wasn't the victim. Janelle became the prime suspect, and Officer Warren faced a host of questions and contradictions in this complex situation. While researching the woman's past, he found her ex-husband, whom he called into the station to learn details about their life together and the alleged assaults. The husband provided a detailed description of the incident involving a domestic violence complaint. When he mentioned where and how Janelle had injured herself, Warren reflected on the fact that a person willing to go to such extremes is potentially capable of anything. In looking into Gregory's alleged violence toward his wife and son, investigators found no evidence to support Janelle's claim. At this point, they felt the pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to fit together, and building a case against the suspect was now only a matter of time. Janelle was called in for another interrogation, but she reported that her attorney had told her not to say anything without his presence. When asked for the name of the attorney, Janelle said it was Randall Levine, which only increased the suspicion of investigators. Randall Levine was one of the most famous defense attorneys in Calamo, and by making this choice, the perpetrator gave herself away. By now, few doubted that Janelle was the one who killed Gregory. After completing its investigation on March 1st, 2017, the sheriff's office filed motions with the prosecutor's office to charge the woman with murder and unlawful use of a firearm. After appropriate review and approval, Janelle was arrested that same day. She was transported to the Calamo County Jail. On March 2nd, 2017, a video broadcast was held from the jail. The trial was presided over by District Judge in Blatchford. Randall's attorney presented his arguments for Janelle's bail, arguing persuasively that she should be allowed to see her young son. However, and denied the request. On June 9, 2017, Janelle was ordered to appear in court by Calamo County Circuit Court Judge Winsett Westra. He ruled that criminal charges have been filed, much to the delight of Gregory's family. The relatives of the deceased felt they were one step closer to a just resolution. At the same time, they realized that they would have to be patient because the trial had just begun. Unexpectedly, the woman agreed to plead guilty. For her, this outcome excluded the option of life imprisonment. But Gregory's loved ones, of course, were not happy about it. On January 11, 2018, 44-year-old Janelle pleaded guilty to the murder of her husband, 35-year-old Gregory Booher. A sentencing hearing was later held on February 12, 2018, presided over by Judges Paul Brandenstein of the Calamo County Circuit Court. At that hearing, Sharon addressed her former daughter-in-law and rebuked her for depriving her of her dearest, favorite son. The woman wished Janelle would get the punishment she deserved. Chet took the opportunity to speak about the wonderful mental qualities of his brother, who was a wonderful and caring father. Janelle herself also addressed Judge Paul and apologized for what she had done, noting that she deserved a serious punishment. The perpetrator received a sentence of 17 to 19 years. Jason was later adopted by his uncle Chet and his wife. When Janelle gets out of prison, her son will be 22 years old. Lily, on the other hand, will never forget the last words of her daddy, who said he loved her. He will always live in the girl's memory, and, watching her from heaven, will be an eternal guardian angel for his daughter.